Welcome back to KSP. Today we're going to attempt to build a reusable space station, but first we must clear up some space junk from our earlier flights. That's SN Tom, an early capsule, and an early first stage booster from Tomship 2. The booster is deorbited and enters the atmosphere successfully. Because it's a much earlier boosted design than I use now, it doesn't stick the landing. The other piece of space junk, the first capsule we ever deployed in orbit, doesn't have any way of getting back home. We'll terminate the flight and send some flowers to Mrs. Kerman, Mrs. Kerman, and Mrs. Kerman. Thanks for your service, boys. So, our space station, it's a Skylab-style modification of our existing second stage, with a new docking hatch, solar panels and HAB module. We'll attach it to our existing reusable Tomship 6 first stage and name the vehicle Tomship 6 Cargo. We begin with some low altitude separation and landing tests. Good separation. Our first stage booster lands successfully at KSC. The second stage space station also touches down successfully. It's time for an orbital test. Ascent through the atmosphere goes well. The solar panels deployed during the coast phase. The vehicle achieves 80-kilometer orbit successfully. And separation is good. We deorbit the first stage. As it happens, we got the deorbit burn wrong and dumped the booster in the sea. We return to our orbiting second stage space station. We need to see if it can sustain a crew in orbit. With the crew in the capsule section, we begin a 30-day orbit to monitor the orbit, the battery levels, and the crew. The solar panels perform well and keep the batteries charged. This keeps the power on and the crew alive. After 30 days in orbit, all is well with station and crew. We orbit for another 30 days with the crew in the HAB. At the end of the 60-day test orbit, we return the crew to the capsule and prepare to deorbit. Solar panels are retracted for deorbit. Re-entry goes well initially with the vehicle in retrograde. However, as the atmosphere thickens, the vehicle begins to spin prograde and can't be corrected despite RCS on the capsule. We deploy the legs in an attempt to right the orientation. There's nothing we can do and we lose both vehicle and crew. We make various alterations to vehicle config over the next few test flights. We settle on a final config with additional RCS and grid fins. The initial landing test of this config is promising but unsuccessful. However, the next landing test goes perfectly and we go for another full flight test. The Tomship 6E cargo is ready to take the station to orbit, where it will stay for 30 days, then deorbit and land on Earth. The first stage booster will return shortly after deploy. Launch is successful. The second stage space station is successfully deployed in orbit. The first stage booster then deorbits successfully and lands propulsively for reuse despite toppling after landing on rough terrain. The space station now begins its 30-day orbit with crew on board. Batteries and solar panels perform well throughout. After 30 days in orbit, the crew and vehicle are healthy. Solar panels are retracted before deorbit begins. After deorbit, the station attempts its propulsive landing. The station lands successfully. With the full test flight complete, we can move to our first operational flight. Reusing the recovered first stage booster and second stage space station will redeploy the station in orbit for a long duration flight with crew on board. On the upcoming flight, station and crew will remain in orbit for the foreseeable future. Launch and station deploy are a success and the booster lands for further reuse. With the station in orbit, the crew transfer to the habitation module for their stay. Batteries, solar panels and crew will be monitored for the first 30 days. After this, the station will be occasionally monitored from the tracking center as other flight operations continue. As we enjoy the views from orbit, let's ask the question, why does the station have to be reusable? All my KSP vehicles must be reusable. Unlike Skylab, this station won't be dumped in the ocean. The other reason is crew transfer. Although the station has a docking port, a crew change flight would still require launch and re-entry of an additional capsule. The crew change will just deorbit and land the station, then relaunch it on its reusable booster. To go real world for a minute, this would also allow regular inspections, repairs and resupply on Earth. The basic design of this station could also be used for other long duration flights, such as moon missions. Here's the view from the tracking station. With our station and crew successfully in long duration orbit, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.